Hey, Clarity Crew. Welcome back to our little corner of the podcast world. My name is Malaysia. I am your host and the owner of Simple Clarity Co. Today, our last podcast, inspired by Women's History Month, is all about growth through mentorship. As someone who has witnessed mentorship be the pinnacle in others' lives, this podcast was anxiously awaited for. We are diving into behind the scenes and real life experience of someone who has built a network for themselves and others and done it through mentorship and support from family, friends, and her own support and belief in herself, because that is so important. You cannot grow through mentorship, through anything in life, if you don't believe it in yourself. No one can believe for you. You have to be resilient as well. You have to understand the amount of percentage you have to give for your growth. And then you find and build the community that's going to uplift you and keep you accountable. That's what we're going to get into today. And we're going to welcome our special guest, Danielle Parson, who did exactly that. We've talked about in our previous podcast for this month, finding the clarity through your therapy. Then we've talked about understanding your mental well-being through your movement. And now we're going to grow through this mentorship. It's all wrapped up here. I really hope you guys love this final podcast for Women's History Month. Please help me welcome Danielle Parson to our Clarity Corner. Welcome, Danielle, to the podcast, and thank you for joining us today. I felt like you were the best person to talk about having growth through mentorship, just by everything that you've gone through yourself and your drive to provide that platform for women here in Pittsburgh. I'm going to quickly go over your background, and then we're going to dive into the questions. Danielle Parson is a native of Chicago. She moved here to Pittsburgh to pursue a career as a morning news producer. During that time, moving to a completely new city, she was able to stay with family. She built friendships. She built a community of women. And then through all of that, took the time to envision and bring to life an entire network called the Professional Women's Network. Throughout this journey of building the Professional Women's Network, you kept your 9 to 5 and worked through all of that. You got married, you had a child, you did a career change, and then you had the ultimate of making PWN your full-time job, which that's the goal for anybody who has a vision for something of their own. I think that's amazing. I commend you on that. I always look up to you that. I speak highly of that. And I don't know if you ever gave yourself a goal or if you ever gave yourself a timeline, but to see it come to fruition, for someone I know personally too, that's how you do it. That's how you persevere. And you can do this full-time worker, a mom, a wife, so many other hats that you wear. And so with that, PWN, Professional Women's Network, is nourishing professional relationships, inspiring meaningful change in personal and professional lives, sharing your internal career opportunities with one another, developing a core network of community leaders, increasing the impact of professional women, empowering women, encouraging women to inspire their own children, and educating women and their families on opportunities or resources here in Pittsburgh. You came to a new place, first of all, by yourself, had a vision, made it come to fruition, and you're very, very impactful in the community. You made a name for yourself. You've had people there, whether they were a smaller name in entertainment or whatever background, to big names, people that have $1 million businesses that are in stores and retailing. You've had it all, and I got to witness it. I think I started helping you in 2019. I don't know what age exactly you left Chicago to come here, but to have the courage to do that, the mental process of finding yourself as a young woman, living in a new city, depending on family for a little bit, finding your own, building a network. What was that mental load like? What was that emotional roller coaster like?
I mean, even you just running through it, I don't see it that way because I've lived it. So it still kind of amazes myself to hear the journey and to hear what has come from me moving to Pittsburgh and building this dynamic community of PWN. So when I moved to Pittsburgh, my goal was to be in Pittsburgh for 2 to 4 years. Clearly, that has not been the case. We're talking about 2 decades in now. And I was really excited to like get in the city and get back into another bigger city. Yes, I'm from Chicago. I came to Pittsburgh via Arkansas. So I lived in Arkansas, this small town in Arkansas. I'm starting off my broadcast communications career, and I lived there for 2 years. And so then I was so excited to be coming back a little closer to home. I have family in Pittsburgh, even though I've never lived in Pittsburgh, and we've all never lived together. But I have family here, so I was just excited to be back where I thought I wasn't going to feel like I was all alone, and
Mhm.
everything I thought was opposite. Like even having the family, I was working morning news. I was going to work, and everybody was going to sleep, and everybody was going out when I was going to sleep. So I still felt very much alone, and I was trying to find ways to navigate that space and find leadership to help me do it. And I just really couldn't. You know, they say that you really can't see some things until you walk through it and go through it and then you turn back around. And so those beginning years were very lonely. It was scary. I came to Pittsburgh the same year Southwest Airlines came to Pittsburgh. So they had all of these bomb flights for like $29. So I was running home to Chicago every chance that I got because it was a lonely time, and it was a time that made me question, do I want to do this? Like, do I want to just go home and live in my dad's basement and whatever job comes around, I'll do it and I'll do my best at it. You know, no matter what I do in life, I'm always going to put forth 200%. And my 200% looks nothing like somebody else's 200%. Most times folks 100% doesn't even come close to mine. And that comes true with a lot of women, especially women of color. So I knew no matter what I was going to do, I could be successful, but it was like I didn't know if I was going to love it. So that's what made me keep pushing to find a space for myself and find what I would love, which is why I did end up leaving the newsroom, which was also a scary transition there. And in the midst of all that leaving, I was meeting women who were having the same type of situations and experiences in Pittsburgh that I did, thinking that they couldn't find connections. They were tired of being the only one in a room. Now, don't get me wrong, being the only one in the room can be a superpower because everyone sees you. It's a great opportunity for networking, a great way to use that space to your advantage. But sometimes it does get draining for us. Don't want to always be the only one. I get tired of that. And I was hearing the same stories from other people. So that's like what we need. And I started describing what now PWN has become and essentially just started it. And then it was actually the network that pushed it to keep going further and further because the members were like, okay, this empowerment experience is great. Love it. Now what's next? This is great. Now what's next? Then when do we meet socially? Now when can I get a coach? Now when can I get a mentor? So I was like, they just kind of kept pushing the network to get to where it is today.
That's amazing. And I didn't even know the backstory. To know that and to know that they were like, hey, you had this idea. Keep going. Like you found the group of women who were like, I love your idea. Keep going. They didn't let you slack off on it. They didn't let you say, oh, this was nice, a one-time meetup social event, or we kept this going for a couple months. That was something we started. It was nice. They were like, no, we love your idea. Let's keep going. And that support and that encouragement that does help you keep going whenever you're exhausted mentally. Like I said, you're still working 9 to 5. You're still getting up so early to get to a morning job. And the
Yeah.
news is early morning. I don't think some people understand what time you guys actually get there to give the morning news, like to deal with all of that, to find that, first of all, and build that. And that says a lot to your character. That says a lot to how much people entrust you and your vision, like character wise, or building that network. That was you. That was your personality. That was your perseverance. That was everything that they could see in you. And they understood your authenticity with all of this. So I commend you on that.
Shout out to the folks that are working in the morning news because I had to be at work at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was definitely a fun time. That's one of the great things about when it comes to mentorship, because when I did say that I wanted to start this during that season, when I kept saying I want to do this, and there were a couple of people that were very key. So I don't want to necessarily say I did it on my own. I absolutely wrote it out on paper. I absolutely had the thoughts. I absolutely went out and sought the funding. But you also need the people that's going to be on the ground to help you do all the things, move the tables, set the tables, open the doors, do the registration, tap into their network and see who can come and buy a ticket. So there were a small group of ladies that were friends. Like we had done a lot of great things together. We had traveled together. Set them down and told them, like, I have this idea. I remember this vividly, sitting at the table, and one of them said, okay, well, what do you need from us? And it was just that simple. Like, what do you need from us? And that was how we did the launch in 2016. That was how we did the first luncheon in 2017. And I think that is a good show of, like, when the people around you, like your day ones, those friends, can come through for you. But you also have to realize that when it comes to elevating and taking yourself to that next level, those aren't necessarily going to be the same people. That might not be their positioning. So that group of friends, absolutely, I will forever be grateful for that group of friends that helped me to be my first board members, to help me to get introduced in some rooms. But when it came to the elevation of PWN, I had other mentors that stepped in from all different places, some that I didn't even ever realize, that helped push it further. Sometimes you do have your day ones and your friends that you've been knowing for 20 something plus years that do turn out to be the folks that can push you in all different levels and get you to that top floor. But that's not always the case. And that's nothing bad on either side. You just have to be open to understanding your mentor and, like, your bestie. Those are not the same people. That's not the same concept. And once I really understood that, I mean, I have people that have helped me tremendously with PWN. I'm talking about getting real funders, getting real people that can step on the stage and come to Pittsburgh and pour into the women in this network that I've never sat down at the dinner table with, that I've
Mm-hmm.
never gone out with, but they still feed my success just the same. And it's not as if when I call on them, it's like, oh my God, here she go again. She only calls me when she wants something. That's not what it is. So when you have a mentor and when you are a mentee, you have to have this understanding that I'm giving you something, you're giving me something. It's a give and take type thing, because mentorship also does not have an age, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I have some mentors that are a couple years younger than me, but they absolutely have gone through paths that I haven't, or they've accomplished things that I haven't. And I learned from that and they help me grow, and vice versa.
Yeah, that's very true. And it took me a while as I got older that the people are seasonal people. That doesn't mean that they don't need to be in your life anymore, but it is a season for that level, that plateau you're at. The next one introduces new people that might have more experience, that might have more drive. You need to understand that just because that person isn't ready for the next level that you are on doesn't mean that they aren't worthy. They still helped you when you were at a certain spot. So I love
Mhm.
that you paid that respects to them and you understood it, because it stinks sometimes when you're like, but we started together, we got to keep going together. And it's not the reality. When you have to learn that reality, it's hard, it's tough. What I've seen from the outside, it's been done very gracefully and respectfully.
They still
Yeah.
shoot me text messages and say, congratulations. Heck, I think some of them were ready to go too. Like, you're working me too hard. I just signed up for this for a short period of time. I was okay
Hmm.
with that too. I have been blessed to have some great support around
Hmm.
us. PWN has an amazing list of volunteers,
Yeah.
board members that just go above and beyond for PWN. I'm extremely grateful for that.
I have the series for Women's History Month, and this one is focusing on mentorship and being able to grow. And literally watching you grow through mentorship is like, there's no one else. I'm going to give the best raw experience and information and honesty about it. Ups, downs, transparency, should I say, with
Yeah.
it. So we're going to jump into these questions here for you. The first one here we have is, at what point did you recognize the need for that professional women's network in Pittsburgh specifically? And what gaps were you aiming to fill? I know you touched on it a little bit, but can you dive
Mhm.
into that a little bit more?
When did I identify the need in Pittsburgh? Immediately. Immediately. I don't know if it was because being born and raised in Chicago, a much larger city, the experiences that I had had there also going to a larger university. I went to the University of Illinois. So also a much larger campus and institution there, and very much predominantly white institution. So understanding what it looks like when you're still in a predominantly white space, but having these intentional spaces of inclusion or these intentional spaces of your culture. University of Illinois did that very well for me. And moving here, it was like, okay, where is that? All of us aren't in one city. We're not like the Atlantas or the Charlottes of the world, but certainly there has to be some place where we're all at together and learning and growing. And I can say the city has done a much better job of that in the last 2 decades. But when I first moved here, it was just immediately I recognized that there were women that were in senior level positions that weren't being recognized, that I didn't see, that we couldn't identify. There were women of color that were growing up these pipelines and doing great things in around the city, and I didn't see them really being celebrated. I heard about them because at that time I was in a space where I could, because I was working in television. I was working in news, so I was able to hear about it. But did everyone else know about it? And then I had my family here, but shout out to my family, we loved a good kitchen party. So it would be just us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yep.
was nobody else. We was at somebody's house sitting in the kitchen. So I wasn't building my network. I wasn't growing. I realized immediately that Pittsburgh had a gap, especially when it came to women of color. And then I identified I'm not unused to a city. It's not uncommon for cities to have these segregated spaces. But what I identified very early in Pittsburgh is that where the majority of my culture, my Black folks were living, were in the most impoverished neighborhoods in the city. And that was something that I was not used to. That was something that was startling when I first came here. And at first I just thought, maybe I just haven't explored enough of the city. But as I continue to go out and I talk to people, that's what was happening. And some of the folks that were living in spaces that weren't maintained and kept up, they had jobs. They were going to work every day. They were taking care of their family, but their neighborhoods didn't have, and still many of them don't have the resources. So I identified very early on that there was a gap for Pittsburgh.
And that's crazy because we probably didn't see it. We're so used to it. This is normal life. And you're like,
Yeah.
this isn't. There's so much more potential. There's so much
So
more.
much more potential.
Yes.
So much more potential. And in those communities that are not getting the support, don't have the resources, don't have the grocery stores, those are where you find those community activists, those change makers, folks that have been changing Pittsburgh for generations. Pittsburgh's history is pretty dope. Like when you go back and look at the things that were happening, even in the Hill District, and I'm not even just talking about the music and the art. When you look at folks like August Wilson, I'm talking about when you look at like the first ambulance service. And the reason why it came was because ambulances wouldn't go to Black communities.
Mm-hmm.
When you really dive into Pittsburgh's history, there has always been some dope change makers around. So with the work of PWN, I just feel like we would be doing a disservice to not keep things moving because we're standing on some big shoulders.
Well, thank you for that
No
because
problem.
you taught me a little something. I'm like, I did not know that. You said it happens in small areas. We might have that happen in the outskirts of Pittsburgh's, in the Homewood or in the Homestead or where I'm from, McKeesport. But for it to come together, it never has. And imagine if every place that had that, because I feel like every small borough or town in Pittsburgh and right outside has done things of that magnitude. They've never come together to make it something big, to make it a movement.
Okay.
I will jump to the next question. Can you describe the initial challenges of building the PWN network from the ground up and then how you overcame them?
The biggest challenges for me was probably getting over the folks that were telling me that I could not do it. The first large event that we had, which has now become our signature staple event that we host in January, I said in October of 2016 that I wanted to do this event in January of 2017, which is insane. And everyone looked at me like I was crazy. But we did it. It was phenomenal, and it has continued to grow over the years. I mean, at this point, we've more than tripled our attendance and our impact. So finding the people that wanted to support me and the things to get it done, that was never the hard part. It was always, for some reason, the naysayers rang very loud in my head. The folks that were like, Pittsburgh doesn't need this. Pittsburgh is an old boys town. It's not going to change. Women don't need this. We are managing it all on our own. Or they're not going to show up because they have their families, they have their jobs, they don't have time for something else. And all of those things, I gave it space to be true. Like, oh, you're right. Women are busy. They do have kids. No, we don't have money for childcare. Like, we're not going to be able to take care of the babies. We don't have money to get them there. I start to doubt. Once I got past that, it was really like game on. I can show you better than I can tell you. And then we had that first event. And then when folks were like, oh, you're doing something great, I want to get my staff involved. So let me buy them tickets to the event, or let me purchase some memberships for them, or let me come speak for your organization. When folks start to come to me, instead of me feeling like I had to keep pushing out PWN to them, it was like, okay, I got this. And a lot of times women do that. We let the people that tell us that we're less than, we let that be so much louder in our head. And it wasn't even the majority of the people. The majority of the people loved the concept. The majority of the people, men and women, were sitting down at the table with me, helping me to strategize and figure this out. And it was way more of them than just those few naysayers. But I did let them get in my head for a long time. And sometimes I even found myself going back a little bit, especially as we work to expand PWN outside of Pittsburgh. I still have some of that in the back of my head, and I have to just keep pushing myself away from that, because I have to remind myself that when I got this call in, when I got this message, it wasn't a conference call. So they're not going to understand my mission and my calling because it was my call. So
Yeah, and you're right with Pittsburgh being this gentleman place. Because I grew up with my grandparents, that's what it was. Men had their leagues and they had their groups. And my granddad used to go on a trip to Vegas with his friends every single year. My grandma just stayed home. She never left. They maintained the family. It was just like, no, why can't I have a community? Why can't I do something? Why I don't want to just be at home with kids. I have other interests. I have other hobbies. You crave that adult interaction. Now, me being adult, I went through that, losing your identity and, oh, I'm a mom. I can't do this. I got kids. But it was ingrained in us that that's the title. That's what we do. The men go out. They work the mill, so they get to go out and do the relaxation. They get to go out and have the group in communities. They get to go out and sit at the bar. There's so many Elks clubs and everything. And it's men. I guess you're right that they're going to give you that excuse because that's what they were ingrained to believe. And it is, when you look at Pittsburgh as a whole, there are so many things for men in clubs and communities. And I don't think I've ever heard of a women's network until you showed up, until you brought it to the floor. Now, was I younger? Yes. So I probably wasn't looking into it. But when I even bring it up to my family now and I say, oh, Wes's cousin has this, and they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, it's like you've made it normal for me now because I've been around it for so long. But when I speak about it or I say, oh, she has an event or I'm doing my vendor table there, they're like, wait, what is this? What is it about? And I'm like, people really don't get that this is a thing now. We have a space now. It's a safe one too. And it's a legit one. It's not just gossiping and being what do they say? Women just talk about how hard it is at home and with their kids and no, this is building. This is leadership. This is helping inspire, empower. This is showing you your superpower that you might have hid from your own self. This environment is amazing to be around. I don't know of any other big women's group yet. I just know of PWN. It could be my lack of just going out there because I found a home in PWN already. But I'm glad you had the vision, and I'm glad it was your private call.
So I think around that time, there were a lot of other folks who didn't get my call, but they did get a call as well, to identify that things weren't good in Pittsburgh. Because even now I'm learning, as we get ready to celebrate our 10th year, there's a lot of organizations around us that are getting ready to do the exact same thing, different missions, but also filling in these gaps. Because again, like I said, I identified immediately that there was a gap, but there was a lot of gaps, and PWN can't fill all of the gaps. That's where organizations came in, where it was like just for brown moms, and brown moms had a space to come together. And so the focus there is on motherhood and entrepreneurship. We nourish that, but that's not our mission. That wasn't my call. There's other organizations that give out funding to organizations that are doing great things in predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods. Or that was also a gap. That just wasn't my call. That was their call. In that time frame, around that 2016, 17, I feel like there was a nice amount of us that were getting calls and identifying gaps. And I'm thankful that so many of us jumped in and followed the call and are pursuing this work and keeping it going, because it does get hard in Pittsburgh. Like I said, and you also agree that it's an old boys town. You have folks here that have come here, their parents lived here, their grandparents lived here. Now they're raising their children here. So they have expanded circles of resources that, when you're talking about communities of people that are always just fighting to stay a little bit ahead, those resource groups don't even match. So it's like we're always fighting against that clock and always behind. And organizations like a PWN are meant so that not only can you catch up, but you can persevere. And so can your family. So can your children. Clark is at dance school over in the Hill District, and she loves it. And we were talking about how the dance teachers can talk to the kids about times when they were the only Black face that were in the classroom. But when they say that to the students at the dance academy, they're looking like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Because they've never experienced that. All of the dancers around them look like them. So we do have to sometimes take that moment to sit back and look at the progress that we have made, because that's a win. The fact that our kids can say that they now are in dance programs, and I'm talking about not some little small dance program in somebody's basement. I'm talking about these kids travel. They dance with international choreographers. They can say they've never had that experience where they were the only Black dancer. That's a win. When I look at the work of PWN, and I have to push those naysayers behind, because there are women that come up to me and say, I found my circle through PWN. Or our coaching cohorts, we put them together for the cohort for 6 weeks, but after that, we don't put them back together. But now they're coming to me and telling me, oh, we get together for lunch quarterly. Now, I don't plan that. That just happened organically from the relationship, because I gave them a safe space. PWN gave them a safe space. So
Yes.
when I have to look at those wins, when I'm thinking about the reason I answered the call and the reason I keep working towards what I know the organization can continue to do and even do better than what we do today. Definitely setting a new standard.
I love it. What key aspects of mentorship do you believe are crucial for women's professional growth?
Well, I have mentors that fill a list of different roles in my life. And I think what we have to identify is what I said earlier, in terms of every mentor is not going to be your best friend, but identifying where are you looking for support in, because mentors are typically just as busy as you are usually just as driven as you are. So that means their plates are also full. They're also serving on boards. They might be taking care of a family or trying to build a family. They're just as busy as you are. Time is of the essence. So what are you looking for? And communicate what it is that attracted you to them in the first place. For instance, I remember the first time a mentee found me and said, I've been following your communication work. I saw the stuff that you did at KDKA. I'm loving the work that you are doing with PWN. And I just wanted to know, would you have some time to meet and talk to me? I was floored, because I didn't see myself as a mentor at that point. I was still grabbing from other people. I mean, I even stopped and chuckled, and I was like, that is not what I was expecting her to ask me. But to this day, I'm so proud of her. So what she leaned into from me were those things that she identified. So I'm like her connector. She moves to a new city, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I know 5 people that live in that city. Your background is government and policy. I know such and such, such and such, such. I just saw a job posting here that fits you. I'm her connector. That was what she needed from me. Somebody else, her other mentor, might be something else, and she has to be able to communicate that to them. So I think communication and that honesty. And then you cannot force it. You cannot force a mentor into your life. And a lot of times when you try to force it, it's not going to work out well because that's not the right mentor for you. That's the
Mhm.
reason why you had to force it, because that's not the right person. Especially now. It was different when I was younger. Social media wasn't around like how it is now. But social media will have you thinking that someone has all of the bags and all of the right decisions, and their businesses are just doing everything, that they have a successful product, that they have a successful brand, that they're honest, that they have integrity. It'll make you think all the things. And you'll start asking that person to be your mentor, and you start following them, and you lift that curtain back just a little sliver, and it's like, what did I get myself into? So you have to be careful. You want to be able to like not be a fan of the person. That's not what a mentee is. You're not meant to be a fan of the person, but you are looking for someone that can join you in your mission, be a part of your personal board of directors. The same way when you're running a company and someone is managing the finance, someone's managing the communication, someone's managing the marketing. That's the way you want to look at who's helping you in managing those roles in your life, who's speaking your names in rooms when you're not even there. And that's when you get even a little bit further than mentorship, and you get to sponsors. So those
Mhm.
are the people that have identified you're doing great work. You are a phenomenal person. You're somebody that they don't mind attaching themselves to. And then when they walk into spaces and someone says, I've been looking for a great community of women to get involved with. I don't know where to go. And they can say, talk to Danielle. And I could be sitting on my couch eating popcorn, because some days you need that popcorn and wine. So I'm not out and about. I'm not outside on that day, but someone is outside for me. That's when you start to develop those even stronger relationships outside of mentoring that comes to being your sponsor.
Okay, that's a level. I didn't think
Mm-hmm.
of it like that,
Mm-hmm.
so that's good to know. And just to touch back on what you said, those that are looking for a mentor, you have to understand when they show you who they are, you have to believe it.
Yes.
You can't just, oh, but they have this. Oh, still, they're showing you who they are. Why are you even entrusting? Like you said, people put on a facade for social media, which is one of the hardest challenges. They have to make their content look good for it to get pushed through this algorithm. And I get it. There's got to be clickbait. There's got to be this. But once you see that person, once you see what they're doing, or you see the way they move, take it for what it is at face value. You saw them through social media through this lens. Social
Yeah.
media get telling you another lens as well. You don't get to see them in person. What did they say? You never want to meet your favorite celebrity because it's all polished. So if you get that opportunity to, like you said, peek behind the curtain, take it at face value.
Yeah. A perspective that a mentor gave me was that mentees don't find their mentors. Their mentors find them. And it took me a minute to understand that, because I was kind of like, no. But when you sit back and like really try to break it down, he's not saying that the mentor walks up to you and taps you on the shoulder and say, I see something in you. I want to be your mentor, even though that could happen. But that's
Mhm.
not what he's saying. But he is saying that you won't have to force yourself into the space. You won't have to force yourself into a conversation with them. You won't have to force them to be engaged with you and be interested in you. They will be. And if they're not, that's not the right person. That ties in with the facade that we see on social, and even the facade that we see sometimes at some of the like networking and out and about events. Some people are just very well known. Folks know their name. That doesn't mean that they always come through. So pay attention to that. I've learned the most from my mentors watching some of them go through their hardest times, and
Wow.
how they handled it with grace, how they treated me during those times. Like some of them were going through things at points. I'm talking about losing spouses, losing high paying jobs, falling to the bottom. And sometimes I didn't always know it, because they were still helping me while they were going through this. So I have learned a lot about people based on how they handle their hardest times, especially the mentors and who I have learned to keep around me.
I think that becomes a reflection of you too, that someone took the time to, it's kind of like the pay it forward. Someone did
Mm-hmm.
this for me. And
Yes.
you're like, I know that if this ever comes up, I can still be there for somebody else, or at least be
Yeah.
transparent in my availability at the time, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's beautiful that you take the time not to woe is me, or well, you said you're my mentor, and you gave the grace, and they made them feel like they're human, because being a mentor, you might get put on a pedestal where people might believe you're superhuman. You
Yeah.
should be able to do everything. You're the mentor. You should be able to know everything. And it's like, I'm the human. Actions speak louder than words. Any action, good and negative, you need to pay attention to if you want to consider someone to be your mentor. Doesn't matter how popular they are. Do you really want them being your mentor just so you can get your name out there? Like, there's more to mentorship than the popularity contest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You did mention that you had multiple mentors. Have you had multiple mentors at once? And what does that look like?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I have multiple mentors at once. We're complex, lots of layers. So there's some mentors that help coach me when I'm in something in my personal space, anything from buying a home to having a child to trying to find this work life integration. And then on my professional side, I have mentors that help me with making sure that PWN is a sustainable model, that we have a nice strategic structure that can outlast me if that's what we see forth for the organization. Mentors that help go into their pocket of network or Rolodex and phone contacts and connect me with all types of incredible speakers. Some of the best speakers that we have had at PWN, I met them through Zoom or over the phone because one of my mentors said they needed to be connected to me, and they needed to come speak at a PWN event. And because they're my mentor, I respect them. They know me. They've been following me on this journey. I trusted them, and they were right. So I think that everyone should have multiple mentors at one time. Now, you can't have three mentors that are all trying to help you with, I'll just make something up, trying to help you with your next career move, and they're all giving you three different types of advice. So I'm very intentional. I have one mentor, his name is Steven. If I'm working with Steven, Steven is talking to me about my professional growth all day because he has done a tremendous job at it and he's known me forever. So we're talking about what my resume looks like, what type of negotiations I'm doing on my contracts. This is when I was in the corporate roles, but even now when I'm making my own salary for PWN. Are you being nice just because you own the company? Are you still paying yourself your worth? What do your benefits look like? What do your stock options? What do your health care look like? So that's that space. And no one else has that lane as a mentor in that capacity. It's like not necessarily segmented, but they have their roles in their space. And I have my role that I play for them as well.
I never thought about a mentor in your personal life.
I think everyone thinks of mentorship in terms of professional,
Mm-hmm.
but I think if, especially in the last, 5 years, if COVID showed us nothing, there's times when things just like come crashing together and you got to take a real strong, hard look at things. Some people might have a different name for it. Like maybe they called it their counselors, maybe their friends are their counselors or things like that. But especially in this entrepreneurial space, sometimes I'm in the middle of a call and I'm doing laundry. Things get blurry. So it's, for me, it's good to have people that can check that on both sides of it.
I can see now with you making that statement, having that, what you're calling mentor, is personal and professional, because like you said, you have to integrate the two so they do wove together. So having a mentor, like mother wise, person wise, you building who you are in a internal way, and you being able to take that new build of yourself, or that evolution of yourself, and make sure you're applying it correctly to your business without selling your family short. I can see
Yes.
how that, with an entrepreneur lifestyle, I can see how that,
Yeah.
I guess in my 9 to 5, I'm thinking like people just have therapists, but there is a difference between a mentor and a therapist. I don't have either one, so I can't tell you the difference. But
Mm.
if I look at, those are two different things. and actually focus on that, yeah, I could see how you would have a mentor. It's not as deep as a therapist will go to figure out what are triggers, da, 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 but it's more of management so that you can show up healthy for your family. And then you have this work life, whether it's entrepreneur 9 to 5, you show up healthy for that, and you have your mentors, and that you can keep it, like you said, segregated, even though they're intertwined. You have to integrate them. It does it with a little bit of fluidity, and you have the support on both ends. I can see that.
Yeah, and some mentors can become just as close as family. Not all, I've discussed that. And that's because they are still trying to help you be the best you. And the best you is not just the best professional you. And that's one of the things that we have learned within PWN. When starting it wasn't meant for that word professional to be looked at as if you were sitting behind a desk every day from 9 to 5. It was looked at for whatever you considered as being what your role was, that you did very well. So you could be a professional blogger, you're a professional banker, you're a professional mother, you are a professional student. It wasn't meant to mean that it was the folks that were like polished and sitting at the top corner office, which is why the actual brand is PWN. But once you get into the space, you see that. But that's why, we always have to push. Come, let us show you. Come see the environment. Come see the community. But we definitely focus on making sure folks are nourished professionally and personally. Because for women in particular, it's very much needed for our mental.
I was very hesitant to want to become a member or want to get involved outside of volunteering just to help you. I'm like, no, I'll help you out, but I'm not professional. I wouldn't
Yeah.
fit in here.
Yeah.
I'm not classy or business. I'm just over here trying to make it work 9 to 5. I don't see myself as professional, and I had to learn that. It took a couple years of me even just helping you and volunteering to know that this is not that. Think about it as you building your own internal professional network. Like you are your business.
Yeah.
Who you are is the business, and you're building a network. Think of it like that. It could be a network, like you said, for moms to help each other, and maybe they go on and they empower each other to change career paths or to start another mini mom group or be there for a spot in their community and build something there. It's all of that. It's not just for professionals. So thank you for clearing that up on the podcast, because it took a minute for me to learn that too. So do you encourage the experienced women at PWN to actively participate in mentoring younger or newer members?
We do. We don't have a direct program yet, but we do talk about the importance. We also talk about, and it's from the very beginning, we talked to PWN, we speak names in rooms, even if the person that we're speaking on is not in the room. I've said that from the very beginning when we started the organization. And as we continue to climb and we go up the ladder, we turn around and we pull someone else up with us. So what PWN has fostered are these intentional spaces in terms of the planning part, but that offer opportunities for these organic relationship building. So it's for folks who may have taken all these classes and gone to all these things that want to tell them how to network. It's a way of taking all of the stress off of that and just giving you a space to come and be yourself and say, today was hard and I want to talk to someone about it. Or my job is not fulfilling for me. I'm looking for something new. And not saying, hey, Malaysia, I want you to find me a new job. No, but just being open and feeling comfortable enough to share that. Well, then someone, Malaysia or someone else, might say, well, what's your background? Where's your resume? What are you looking to do? And these are not examples that I'm just throwing out. These are real things that have happened in PWN spaces. We have women who have found new jobs, new opportunities. We have women that come in and it's like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm about to do about summer camp. I totally missed the deadline. I don't know what I'm going to do with these kids for the summer. And someone's like, oh my goodness, we have 3 spots available. Send me an email in the morning. And by Monday, those babies are in summer camp. Those are the type of things that happen. And so PWN does not have that programming that says this is your mentor, this is your mentee, but we do give that space for you to build and cultivate that. And we talk about the importance of it.
Oh, good, yeah. And we witnessed it personally in your family that has happened, and
absolutely
just voice like, I don't feel like I'm I'm happy here. I feel like I want to move forward. I'm scared and I'm nervous. And I'm sure she would have never done it without the support of family and now PWN, where she's just met women that were strangers the day before. At that point, sometimes some people believed in her more than she believed that she had the strength to do it. So that I got to witness that too. So, sometimes strangers saying it, you're like, okay, okay, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it.
Exactly. And sometimes you need that. I
Mhm.
tell people when they look at the pictures and the hugs, the smiles, the sometimes the tears, they're all real. None of it is staged. Like the events are true vibes where
Mhm.
women are just able to let their hair down and have a good time and being a room that was built for them. Like PWN, yes, I get the honor of leading it and running it and losing sleep over it. It was not built just for me. It was built for the women in this region. And now understanding that it will and should play an even larger role in developing and connecting women outside of this region.
I'm excited to see it. That is something that I wanted to touch base on here, which I'll get to in the last question too. Just your vision on that. This next one is mentorship something that women should expect to pay for, or is it casual free conversation?
That's an interesting concept. I don't think that mentorship is something that women should pay for. I do think that coaching and
Mm.
therapy are things that women should expect to pay for because you're now talking about folks that have gone through additional certifications and educational tracks to be able to take you to new levels. Your mentor, I don't want to downplay it as if it's a cheerleader because cheerleader is not the word, but the visual of a cheerleader fits very well with a mentor, someone who is constantly rooting you on, someone who is constantly giving you that great pep talk that you need. And a really good mentor would like get a little bit deeper and sit down on the bench with you and say, hey, this is why your game is sucking. Like, pay attention
Mm.
to this, right? But when you start talking about coaching, now with a coach, you're bringing everything out and laying it on a table. And this coach is taking all of their education, experience, and background and giving you a very clear blueprint of what you should follow. And now you don't lose your mentor in that process, though. Your mentor didn't help you develop the blueprint. Your mentor is likely not skilled to make that blueprint for you, but you still have that person pushing you along. Your mentor is pushing you along for that blueprint. I don't want people to think when I say coaching, I mean therapy at all. Those are two different things. But your coach, like your executive coach or your professional coach, that's a very intentional and strategic process. So I do think that that is something that women should invest in more and in every stage of their career. We sometimes wait until we get to like these executive levels and feel like, oh, now I need a coach. And we do that sometimes with our money management. We want to wait until now we're making good money to say, oh, let me go get a financial advisor. But if you would have had that financial advisor 9 years ago, that advisor could have brought you in an extra $150,000 before you even got to that, 6-figure salary that you now have. So I think executive coaching, professional coaching, therapy, all those type of great things, that's level up. So yes, you should be paying for that. Mentorship, no, you should not be paying for mentorship.
Thank you for separating those. That's a clear distinction, and you're absolutely right. And like, it's for someone who wants to be involved in and get a mentor. I sometimes don't know what to expect. People can, oh, I do mentorship, but it's this a month, and it's like, is that meant to? I don't know. I'm going off ignorance. I've never had one, so that helps.
Yeah, this is the second time that you've said that too that I've heard this. And I was gonna wait till after the call, but I'm just gonna put you on blast now.
That's
And
fine.
you said you don't have a mentor. I would also encourage sometimes for people to take a step back and take a look to see if there is someone in their life that is mentoring them and they just have not pegged them as a mentor yet. Like maybe you just haven't
Mm.
given them the title because that could be the person that is choosing you and you haven't accepted yet. And I don't know
Mm.
if that is or is not the case for you. I used the example of Steve earlier. I went to college with Steve. Steve was mentoring me for years before I said out loud, he's my mentor. So sometimes you also have to take a look and assess. Like you might have some good people around you that are every now and again just dropping a nugget, and you haven't like grasped on yet to say, oh wait, I want you to play this role for me. So that you could already have someone may have already chosen, and you just haven't received it yet. So just assess.
I'm glad you didn't wait till after the call. The crazy thing is, the first person that comes to mind is my younger sister, who she just did it last night. We was on the call, and she was asking me about my spring collection and all this stuff, and she's helped. I just thought it was a sisterly thing. We're sisters. She just wanted to make sure her sister was succeeding, and that's just what we do.
Yeah.
But I never thought of it like that. Thank you for that. I will definitely be able
Oh,
to self reflect on that and graciously take it in if that's what she's doing, because I'm appreciative. She doesn't have to, and I never asked her to, but to recognize it and to show, to finally say it, that I would love to do that. So thank you.
yeah.
I'm glad you did
No
that.
problem.
When you look back, what advice would you give yourself about the career transitions that you made and building this supportive professional community?
I've reflected on this question. If I had to go back and give myself some advice on how this path has gone, I think depending on the day, my level of advice is different. And the season that I'm in now, if I had to go back and do things any differently, I would have been even more intentional with the people I put around me and the relationships that I've gone into. I've always heard the lessons of understanding one bad apple would spoil the bunch, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not something that was not in me, but I wish that I would have understood more on the professional and the professional growth side of what all of that meant, because the wrong relationship can kill a dream and can
Mm-hmm.
kill progress. And I'm talking about having a friend around you who is great for the party, not great for the business. Not to say I did this. You can stay out all night having a great time, but then come Monday morning, that person is not ready to now push you to get up and now do the business side. I'm grateful that now I do have those friends that I can call, and we can go out and we can hang out all night on Saturday. We can hang out all day Sunday for a Sunday fun day. And then Monday, let somebody call and say, hey, where we're going? Oh, no, 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 no. Didn't you say you had to finish this deal? You had this grant to finish. You're about to have an event next week. We had our fun. Now we have to work. I've recently started loving golf. I'm not that great at it. I'm okay. I'm learning. I look good when I'm doing it. And just being able to be out on the course and talking to different people about their life, their business plans, their hopes, their dreams. I'm learning that some of their mindsets are just different than what I surrounded myself around professionally when I was younger. And granted, I was building, and I'm not saying anything negative about any of my friends. I'm talking about people that you meet later in life. I'm talking about your colleagues. I'm talking about the people that you are trying to, maybe you thought they could become your sponsors and they weren't the right people. If I could have been more intentional younger, I feel like some of the work that I have to do now, I might not have to do as much of for that relationship building. If you look at some of the big brands and people that have been able to take their ideas to these new and huge levels, they tell their stories about making a phone call and telling a friend, hey, I want you to wear my hat on your next movie set. You see what I'm saying? And then
Mm-hmm.
now that brand becomes, everybody wants that brand. But that was a relationship. That wasn't like a business transaction. So relationships really do matter. And my relationships, I have folks that couldn't get rid of me right now if they wanted to, because they have helped so much with the brand. I just wish that I could like duplicate them and I could have more of them. And I think if I would have learned that lesson earlier, I could have. And in terms of switching over careers, I should have done it sooner. And I know that there's a plan. I know God has a plan for me. And sometimes things don't happen in our time. But I actually think He was pushing me sooner and I didn't listen. So I would tell folks, like, do not get comfortable. Like, it's so easy to get comfortable where all of a sudden you just feel like, but I got a check coming in every 2 weeks and I know where my health care is and it's not too hard to manage right now. I'm not too stressed. It's okay. If I take on this another role, I'm going to be so stressed. I wish the fact that I would have just taken that leap sooner because I had gotten comfortable. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't taking care of my health and wellness. And even now, just looking at where I am in this entrepreneurial journey with PWN, which by the way was never my goal. PWN was never supposed to be a full-time business. Looking at it now, I'm a happier person. I'm a happier person to be around. I'm a happier person for my child. I'm a healthier person. So I wish I would have done it sooner.
It's like you're in my house. Like, mind your business, Danielle. Okay. You're not about to sit here and tell everybody my problems.
I'm
I
not
know.
telling anybody to leave their 9 to 5 or to leave the check. I'm not saying
Right.
that. I'm
Right.
not saying that. But I'm saying you do some assessment and start to plan when can it happen. I was pushed out the door. My last job ended up doing cutbacks and layoffs, and my department was eliminated. So who's to say that I still wouldn't be in that position if that wouldn't have happened? And I would be stressing myself out and I wouldn't be living this happy and healthy life that I just described. But I'm just saying, assess. Like part of the growth is going to be being uncomfortable. So get comfortable being uncomfortable. Push yourself to that level. I remember watching a documentary and Will Smith told his son that level of greatness is running all the way full speed to the edge without falling over. So right when you get to the tip without falling over, that's what you need to push yourself to. I feel that when he says that.
Yes. You know when you're supposed to go. You know, there's that feeling. And I've had this feeling since 2018, since Austin was born. And I'm here. I'm still there.
But you also have to think about the work that comes with that. Like, are you goal
Correct.
setting? Who, like what we talked about, who's around you? Are you writing it down on paper? Like, if you just got it up in your head, those are not goals, those are wishes. So like you need
Correct.
to like write those things down, be very intentional, and it'll come.
I know that that's what I'm supposed to do. And I know this is because I didn't take that action. That's why. Like, you don't deserve to go and do that if you're
Yeah.
not going to do the work to get yourself prepared for it. This last question here is for the future of PWN. You touched on it just a little bit in the beginning of our conversation about expanding outside of Pittsburgh. What is that vision? What's going on right now that is leading you that way? And what have you done so far?
Yeah. I've always wanted to expand PWN and our programming outside of Pittsburgh because I just recognized how dynamic the space was once we started to really build. Like by I would even say year 2, like year 2, year 3,
Mm.
seeing a room full of different spaces, seeing a sea of Black and brown women. And PWN is not just for Black and brown women, but it's absolutely meant to make sure that Black and brown women feel included and supported and appreciated. But everyone is welcome, of course, to the space, and everyone does come to the space. But to see so many different people, and in Pittsburgh, a place where we're used to walking in a room and being only one, it's nice to see that flip. It's nice to be able to know that our supporters and our allies can come into the room and see, like, I am a guest, I am welcome, I can come, I can get comfortable. So I like that feeling, and I wanted other women to be able to experience that. So it's always been my goal, but again, my focus was here, making sure that the brand here stayed strong. And again, remember, I also had a 9 to 5 when I first started it. So I wasn't able to push it to that level. But now more than ever, when we're during a time when women's resources are being cut, programs are being cut, organizations and jobs that are predominantly run and managed by women are being cut and shut down. We need to be connected past state lines. Like Malaysia needs to be able to call on a sister in Atlanta. And when I say a sister, I'm talking about a female. I'm not necessarily saying someone that looks like you, which is awesome too. But we all have different experiences and backgrounds that can help each other. We cannot be segmented. If we're going to help make real change, women have to stick together. I say often that when women come together, the earth moves. And I believe that because that is when change happens. Like when we set our minds to something, we make it happen. So when we have groups of that are happening across state lines, across the country, that's amazing. We need to be able to call on each other from across our regions, and we need to be able to learn from each other because Pittsburgh has so many different headlines that contradict each other in terms of what it means for being successful here as women. So yes, it's been declared one year the most livable city. Another year it's been declared the worst city for Black professionals. Another year, the worst city for Black women. We see the poverty level and how it impacts Black and brown communities versus white communities. And there are cities that have similar demographics as Pittsburgh that fare much better for women and for African Americans than Pittsburgh. We have to learn from them. We need to know what they're doing. We need to talk to their professionals. We need their professionals on a panel. So why not PWN to bring it together? So that's what we are working towards now. And that's what we're going to see as PWN gets ready for our 10th year.
Oh, I'm excited for that. I'll be there.
Yeah, you will.
I'll be there. Just something that I wanted to touch on before we close out is we talk about it being Professional Women's Network, and you've talked about being Black and brown, and I'm glad you specified that it's not just for Black and brown women. It's that they know that they have a space. These events, there is a sea of women of every type of shade, there every type of statute and beauty and background, ethnicity, and then there's men. Men have come in and spoken. It's just that you know that this platform was made for you, and you're going to get a little bit of everything in it. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful melting pot, if I can use it as that.
Absolutely. It's definitely about understanding the mission and where you fall in line with the mission. If you fall in line with the mission to nourish women to be their best and their best selves professionally and personally while being a positive and active influence in their community, then you have a space. But what I tell men, you are more than welcome as long as you understand your place in our space. You are an ally. You're coming in to support us. You're coming in to listen to the conversations. You're coming in to give your input on where you can support the mission. And you're going to be one of about maybe 4. So as long as you're okay with that,
Yeah.
you are more than welcome. I do look forward to some programming that we are introducing this year, though, that is social, where we are working with some fraternities or working with some Black men organizations. Looking forward to those opportunities because women do need our allies. I am blessed that I was raised by a strong male, a strong Black man, and I've never gone a day in my life without protection from a strong Black man. I don't expect anything different as I continue to grow. So that means that if I'm in a space and there's a man that is saying he's an ally, that he supports what we're doing with PWN, I expect protection. And I'm not talking about putting his arms up in front of me and keeping anyone away. I'm talking about speaking my name in a room. I'm talking about lifting up PWN. I'm talking about if I'm in a boardroom and I'm the only woman in the boardroom, being on my side. I'm not saying be on my side of my ideas are bad, but at least let me feel your support. You know, you can be my coach. You could be my mentor. You could be my sponsor. Women need to be protected because, yes, it's easy for us to say that women are strong and women are resilient. We're also sensitive. We're also soft. We're also emotional. So we need that protection because when you give us that protection, that's when you get the best sides of us. And you want the best sides of us at all times. Because if you look at the numbers, the companies that are being led by women who are being protected, they're making money. They are making a difference. They are successful. So we need that protection. So that's what I look for in the 1 to 4 men that attend PWN events. But as we start to have more with them, I look forward to us cultivating more relationships with men, understanding that they are our allies and they are important in this movement and this work as well.
I want to thank you for that. And because all of this is coming down the pipeline and your 10 years coming up, I let everyone in our podcast world, and this will be on YouTube as well, let them know where to find you. I'll put your URL, the website for PWN in the description, but social media and memberships and everything.
All of our information is on our website, so prowomensnet.com. What I tell folks is, so our membership level is 3-tier. Our first level is basic, which is completely free. Then we have our standard and our premium. Standard and premium give you access to a little extra programming, some more exclusivity, that coaching that I talked about, that's in that premium package. But with the basic, if anyone's watching right now and they're not sure, they don't know, if they have the money, if they need to see it first, there's no reason not to be a basic member. It's completely free. And what it does is make sure that you get access to everything. You get all of our information. Now, your events and things will be a la carte. You'll pay for what you want, whereas if you get your membership, there's things that are included. but you'll pay a la carte. But it gives you an opportunity to really get to experience the network for yourself. And then you get some exclusive opportunities to meet with other members or to meet with sometimes with speakers that came in. This year we had Lynn Whitfield, iconic actress, that came in for our keynote speaker. Our premium members got to meet and greet with her and sit down and talk to her. Some of our vendors got an opportunity to give gifts to her with their brand. I would say, if nothing else, you need to become a basic member. And then our website has our full roster of events that we are doing throughout the year. And we are so great at always adding on pop-up events and opportunities where you don't have to pay anything. You could just come, show up, and get to meet and greet and know and feel the vibe of the community. And then we get able to do that thanks to great partners that make that happen. But if you're not at least giving us your email address through your basic membership so that we can get that information to you, you won't be connected. It's really, PWN is something that you need to give to yourself. It's not thinking of, I'm so busy, I don't have time to go to another event, or I don't have time to put one more thing on my calendar. This is not you sitting at a dinner at a local hotel with the same dry piece of chicken and you're like, why is this speaker talking? That's not what this is. This is you breaking into new opportunities. This is you prioritizing you. This is you being able to find women to introduce your babies to so that they know Black excellence, so they don't have to be the only person in the room. This is you being able to have a friend of a different color that doesn't look like you, that still fights for you in rooms. We need that too. So it's not putting something else on your plate. This is doing something for you, because not everybody's going to be your friend, but supporters and people that are going to feed into you. It's definitely about you. So you'll be doing yourself a disservice if you don't just click that box.
Oh, absolutely. Sign up. It's not going to clog up your inbox. It's nothing like that. They're all intentional emails. Even people that, if you have a business like myself, I started off helping or volunteer, but you can be a vendor. People have traveled to come to the events to be a vendor. It's well worth it. At least go to one event. It is worth it. It is 100% worth it. I agree with you on that.
She said it. I mean, I agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate all the information and the description. And once again, best person I could talk to about mentorship and growth in this whole adult life, and especially a woman trying to find her way and not lose herself with all the different hats she has to wear. I feel like you are a great representation of that. And like you said, you never wanted to make this your full-time thing, but you did it. It was yours. This was yours to take. And you took a leap of faith on yourself, and you had the support. You built that community. You built your support group. You knew, and that's what we all need to learn to do. If we want to be successful, you have to take the initiative to build the right type of support group. Who are you surrounding yourself with? That's going to dictate how your life is going to turn out. Love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I just want to make sure to give you some kudos as well, because I know you say like you're trying to figure some things out, and you got so many hats to wear. You're doing a really good job. You're doing a really good job. And I don't think that we tell ourselves that enough. So that's the reason why it's good to have a community around you, hence folks from PWN that can tell you that as well. You're doing a really good job. The way that you manage family, balance family, you're building your brand, and you're doing it with grace and integrity. Because you could easily just, go on TikTok and just say anything, but you're being very intentional. It shows. So I appreciate you for this space as well.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me. And as someone who hasn't been very vulnerable in life, and I've been protected and very guarded, and I just see things that I do like I'm supposed to do it, not that is actually a good accomplishment. I know that's a problem. I've been told. My sisters don't hesitate to tell me that. Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot.
No problem.
So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate every single moment and all the gems that you dropped. And I hope everyone has learned something from this. This is the last podcast for Women's History Month that I wanted to just provide for you all. I feel like we've done therapy, we've done mental well-being, and now we're doing growth, right? And it just all is tying together. So thank you again, Danielle, and I appreciate your time. Have an amazing day.
Thank you too.
Bye.